All right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt.
And Jake here.
It's been a minute, Jake, and we have a new studio, as you can see.
Yeah, it's new digs, as they say.
Yep, it's actually the same as before, but the room got painted and we shifted some things around.
That's right. It's swapped.
Yep. So, welcome to the studio, and we're showing our faces because some of you just insist on seeing our face.
Just gotta see
there
it.
You go.
So,
yeah,
this is what everyone's been missing.
That's right. Yes, and you didn't even know you were missing it. Now you know. So
that's right.
Well, and since Jake and I did, this, you could be watching this years ago. Who knows when you watch this, but Jake, I went to the Ruckus in Arkansas and met a lot of really nice people. And in fact, some of those people, I came back and starting business relationships with some of them that I can use in my work life, which is pretty exciting.
Nice.
To meet some Torah folks that have some skills that I need at my work. And they're helping me, and we'll do an interview with her soon, and this will be a shout out to Madeline and Rachel, who I met at the Ruckus, and they're going to be forming a social media marketing advertising team, and they're going to be helping me at work. So it works pretty good. So the folks at my work want to make some changes, and these guys are perfect for it. So
awesome. Yeah, it's good to make connections with folks.
Yeah. Yep. So, Jake, we're going to go start looking at a series called Seed War.
Right. So, if you're new to Sabbath Lounge, you can check out all of our such things in sabbathlounge.com, or you can follow us on the YouTube or the Facebooks and all that stuff. We're all over the place, right, Matt?
That's right. It should be pretty easy to find us. In fact, if you can't find us, I'd say you're not trying hard enough.
That's right.
You just Google Sabbath Lounge, and multiple things should pull up, and we're pretty easy.
And some of them might be us.
Yeah, well, we should pull up number one.
That's right.
In the first page. Those should all be us. So
okay.
But we appreciate your time and being here. And so this is going to be multiple parts. We think as many as 4.
Right.
But it could be more. So we try to divide it in somewhat bite-sized pieces, so this is Seed War.
Part 1. Matt, did you want to give us kind of a high-level kind of overview of where this is headed, or do we want to keep them in suspense as we go? And just keep it at a section at a time.
Well, let's see. I got to figure out how to make this full screen. So there we go. That's better.
All right.
So this all started with, we did a series on Revelation, which you can find on
sabbathlounge.com.
And so as we studied through Revelation, we started seeing patterns and seeing these, that clearly there's a war going on between good and bad. And ultimately, you can make an argument the entire text of the Bible is a seed war between Yah's seed and the seed of the devil, for lack of a better term. There is this war that's been happening, and
might you call the seed of the devil the serpent seed?
Yeah, well, I'm not doing serpent seed doctrine. Dangerous ground there.
I just needed to get that out of the way before people get, you know how all those comments come in.
Yes,
and
yes.
People think we're crazy. So
that's right. But we started looking at that, and really it started for me with the Prophecy of Tyre, and what you see in Ezekiel with Tyre, and I came to the question of, has this been fulfilled? And so we're going to eventually get there, but it's going to take us a while to get there. So and then that's the question we're going to kind of have, but we want to kind of see who these people are and where they come from. So, and I list the sources here. So almost immediately, right off the bat, we have the sources listed, and so this is just signifying part 1 of many. We think as many as 4. But I start off with the sources here, this first one. So you may hate Wikipedia, and I'm sorry if you do, but I did use it as a source. Now, all my librarian friends out there, you'd be like, oh, you can't use it. And
Well, this isn't a term paper, Matt.
that's right.
I think, I know Wikipedia gets a bad rap and everything for good reason on many things, but they're a good, like, general information source.
Yeah, you should verify with anything. But honestly, with anything.
If you're looking for something very specific, I wouldn't be going to Wikipedia. But when you're getting a general idea of things, it's a good place to get started.
And I also cite Canva AI images. There are some images in here I had AI help me make because just some of these ites I couldn't find images for, and so it made me some crazy looking images.
Perfect.
So we're going to go through and start looking at, this all starts in Genesis. Jake, will you read Genesis 3:15?
Sure. I want to make a point real quick, though, just for the people only listening, only on audio, that there's also some encyclopedia references in there, too. We didn't just all pull from Wikipedia. Yeah. I know that's the one we hit on, but watch the video and you'll see the different sources. All right. So Genesis 3:15, I will make you and the woman hostile toward each other. I will make your descendants and her descendants hostile toward each other. He will crush your head and you will bruise his heel. So who's you? I will make you and the woman hostile toward each other.
Well, we're talking about Eve and, back at the garden. And right after they ate of the fruit they were not supposed to eat of.
Right, and this is the
consequence of that.
Right, so the you is the serpent, Satan, and the woman's Eve, like you mentioned.
So that's the prophecy, and so, pretty early in the book you see this. And so this is a seed war that begins. The seed of Yah gets mingled with the seed of the fallen angels. They're attacking the children of Yah. And that happens later in Genesis 6, which you probably are familiar with. The contaminated DNA tries to possess the land intended for Yah's children. So I think it becomes obvious pretty early on that they know that they're not supposed to have this. And so they go occupy it. And that's what they do. And that's why later we see that they're still there and in the way later on. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they chose where they chose, because they could have, the world's pretty big. They could have lived anywhere. Why did they decide to be in this particular place?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the way the verbiage you use here when they try to possess the land intended for Yah's children, because that's what Yah tells the Israelites to do, to go possess the land. And that has a specific connotation of, take it and make it your own. It has an ownership and an action kind of tied to it. So
yeah, and yeah, very much so. And interesting, made this application at work before, and very recently, and we've come together at my work, and we've prayed for very, very specific things to help us possess our territory, and he has delivered. Yeah, and he's done that. He's really helped us. So it's amazing what can happen when you pray that kind of prayer, especially with someone who shares a belief, shares similar belief. But when we look at the seed war, we have to look at genealogies. And so this is, the people in the ark, basically, and Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And what do we say, Ham and Japheth? What do we always say? Or usually I say Shem, Ham, Japheth. Is that birth order? Or is that just how I say it? I don't know. That's a good question.
You should have asked me online, then we could have hashed this out beforehand. So see, it's all happening in front of you.
Now I did make this little chart, and so maybe it's just how I put it in there. I don't know. But you've obviously got Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the Edomites, the Moabites. Jake, look at the people that make up Japheth's line here.
So we got Javan, Kittim, Romans, the Greeks, Magog, which is curious. The Celts, the Galatians, which were similar. The Celts and the Galatians kind of mingled together. And then the Gauls, the Trojans, the Samaritans, and the Scythians.
Yep, it's an interesting mix of people. You look at that and you go, oh, those are God-fearing people.
Right.
Not
I
really.
I sure do.
And then on the other side, it gets better. Cush, Nimrod, and Put, Canaan, Amorites, Jebusites, Sidonites, Hivites, Mitzrayim, or Egypt. So I skipped some of those, but Nimrod also would be the Akkadians, the Assyrians, Babylonians, the Algerians, the Libyans, North Africans, Tyre, Hittites, Amorites, Jebusites, Sidonites, Hivites. So, yeah, lots of bad actors here.
Yeah, I think so. Something that comes up a lot here is, I think, especially in the Old Testament, there's a lot of emphasis put on, well, the genealogy and the lineage, they come from this father source, and so that's how we know they're the bad guys, basically. But I love how in the Shem line is the Edomites and the Moabites too, because it's not all about lineage. You have, sure, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come from that lineage, and it shows a strong tie there, but it's not all there is, because anyone is allowed into the family of Yah. And anyone from in the family of Yah can be cut off.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important...
Could be corrupted.
Right. Yeah. So just because you're in the lineage doesn't make you the guy.
Yeah.
So I think that's good that it shows that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll move on to some other things. So then there's another family tree, a little more expanded, where you can see Adam and Eve, Cain, Abel, Seth, and so Abel's line's pretty short for obvious reasons. So it was cut short.
It's too soon, Matt. Come on.
And then you have Ham, and it's just interesting looking at, when you look at these names here, it doesn't mean a lot to us, honestly. So, but you get to that bottom line, and then there's some players you may recognize. And those are the ones we're going to talk about. So, direct descendants of Ham and all of that lineage is cursed. So if you don't know about that, go read that and right after the flood, and you'll see about the cursing of Ham and
right. I think it goes straight to Canaan, because I don't think Ham gets the curse. It skips him to Canaan, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah. And then you can see this on the lineage. It's clear that something happened.
Right. And from the names too, Cush, we know that Nimrod comes from there. Mitzrayim is obviously Egypt for the uninitiated, and Canaan obviously is a big name in Old Testament baddies. Mm-hmm. So
that's right. All right, so we read this one, Genesis 9:26.
Praise Yahweh, the Elohim of Shem. Canaan will be his slave.
Well, there you go. So this says something interesting too, that Canaan is going to be his slave. Pretty early on in the book, definitely there's some drama setting up. And then will you read this one, Genesis 10:15 through 19?
Yeah. Canaan was the father of Sidon, his firstborn, then Heth, also the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Later, the Canaanite family scattered. The border of the Canaanites extended from Sidon toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, and then toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha.
And the highlighting added for effect, especially the double highlighting on Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely not good when your descendants are part of Sodom and Gomorrah. Things have not gone well. So.
Yeah, if only they could have had the hindsight to not go to Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, it would be a lot better. I think they're the reasons it was.
I guess it'd be foresight for them, but
yeah.
So
these are the ites that you've probably heard about before. And so Exodus 3:8. I have come to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and to bring them from that land to a good land with plenty of room for everyone. It is a land flowing with milk and honey where the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites live.
They do indeed.
And then Joshua 3:10.
Joshua continued, "This is how we'll know that El-Hai is among you, and that he will certainly force the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites out of your way."
All right, definitely see a theme here developing with the same players.
Right.
So are there 6 of them?
Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, Jebusites.
7. So this is one of the places where there's 7. And so I used to be a fan of Sir Jack White, and so I'm not a fan of him anymore. Although I did like the White Stripes back in the day. But he has that very famous song, Seven Nation Army, that's played at all the stadiums in the world. And, I'm not sure that Jack White and I are playing on the same team. And so sometimes I wonder if this Seven Nation Army is this. So I don't know. Anybody have any thoughts about what the Seven Nation Army is? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. But when I saw this, I was like, there's your Seven Nation Army right there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, and then let's look at Canaan. Obviously he's a son of Ham. According to the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible, the son of Ham was grandson of Noah as well as the father of the Canaanites.
Hey, that makes sense.
Canaanites, yep.
Hey.
So on all these, I try to put sources back to where we got the information.
Right. Can you go back a couple, maybe? Yeah, just in this section here, when we're talking about rescuing from the power of the Egyptians, etc., I just wanted to throw in Genesis 15:16. But in the 4th generation, so he's prophesying when they'll go into captivity and then when they'll come out. So in the 4th generation, they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So he's telling them the Amorites who live in Canaan are going to be troublesome and need a purging, but that time is not yet.
Yeah.
But he's giving them time to repent, knowing they aren't going to. And so that's kind of an interesting tie-in to these items here.
Yeah, and also interesting how he uses these folks to judge them and to test them and kind of see what they're made out of. So, they get used by Yah, and, and those are things sometimes it's hard to wrap our mind around. How can he use these terrible people and terrible things? But he does test us, and kind of, Job is a prime example of, that we're not, we don't get a free pass just because we walk. That's what's one of the problems with the prosperity gospel movement is, we go through some stuff. In fact, it's this stuff, the trials that we go through that, make us better and show us what we're made out of. Yeah.
And I think the trials, like you said, is an important aspect of it. And when you mentioned he uses bad people or sinful people to teach lessons to his people, and kind of an important point on that is that if he didn't use sinful people, he wouldn't have anyone to use.
Right.
So he's got to kind of use somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Joshua 3:10.
Yeah, we read that. So we're into the Canaanites now. No, I had you go back.
Oh, that's right.
So we're up here a little.
That's right. Yeah, we did that one.
Yep.
And so then let's look at, would you read this, Gary? So this came from Gary Wayne, who wrote a book called Genesis 6 Conspiracy. There's part 1 and part 2. This is from part 2. This is from page 275 through 276, where he has this quote.
So he says, the Canaanite became a catch-all name for hybrid human Rephaim offspring as the patronymic founder of the larger hybrid Canaanite clans.
Okay, so from Gary Wayne, and I think that makes a lot of sense. that we like to name things as humans, and so we just do that, and so that name stuck, and it kind of became like their brand name trademark, and it's what everybody calls them.
Yeah, it's the Kleenex of the day, or the
Yes.
Xerox of the day. So
That's right. That's right.
But so Canaanite, we saw earlier, is a family lineage, but it was also the name of the land was called Canaan. And whoever lived there, the Rephaim and all the other ites that we had discussed, would be called Canaanites, just like you're an American.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a Texan.
And then from this source, this is source 23. And so, this one uses the Levant term, and that's not something that we're necessarily a fan of, but we just quoted it here. It says, the people who lived in the area known as the Southern Levant, which is now recognized as Israel, the Palestinian Authority, Jordan, Lebanon, and parts of Syria, during the Bronze Age, around 3500 to 1150 BCE, are referred to in ancient biblical text as the Canaanites. And that's from a secular source, from Science Daily.
Ooh, science every day. So, yeah, something interesting here. If you'll recognize the term Levant if you go and look at the rise of ISIS or ISIL. Obama was real keen on using the ISIL language because it grouped Israel into Palestine. He wanted to turn that area into one grouping, and so by calling it ISIL, that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, so Canaan, he's the fourth son of Ham. Josephus wrote,
Canaan, the fourth son of Ham, like you just mentioned, inhabited the country now called Judea and called it from his own name, Canaan. Varieties of the name Canaan were used by the Greeks, Phoenicians, Egyptians, and Assyrians. The Hurrians referred to dyed clothes as Canaanite cloth. 11 sons of Canaan are listed and described below. So from source 3, then you'll be checking out verses 15 to 18 in there. So,
yeah.
So this is kind of similar to what we mentioned before, how the land and everyone within it was based on the Canaan name.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to start looking at different people. And so this is Heth, or Het. And again, we don't have the we do, but we didn't put it in here.
That was spot on, Matt.
Yeah, okay, good. So when you look it up in like the blue letter, it's Strong's H2845, and it means terror. So I think it's interesting to look at these people, what their names are and what they mean. And so, that kind of says it all about you if they call you terror.
Right. So just a shout out to the my high school, the home of the Terrors, rocking it in the Terror Dome.
Oh, very nice.
So not that there was really a dome, but that was actually just the gymnasium. So,
all right. So leave us a comment if you know what part of the world he's talking about.
That's right.
Maybe you're from there.
It's very possible.
And more
densely populated.
Densely
I'll tell
populated.
you that.
That's right. So here, here's just another. This is from the reason I put this one in here. This is Brown Driver Briggs, and it just, I don't know that it says a whole lot different, but it also uses fear, terror, and then another one where you see terror. So you see that over and over and over. So this one is interesting. According to this, that there's a connection to Mamre, Hebron. One of them sold Abraham the cave of Machpelah.
Right. So that's this Genesis 23. Abraham buries Sarah. That was the cave of Machpelah, like it says in the BLB there, in the sepulcher there, and Hebron.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. So, So Abraham definitely had dealings with some of these folks.
Right.
And then Heth is the second of 11 sons of Canaan, the fourth son of Ham. Heth was the ancestor to the Hittite nation, which became a great empire through the Old Testament times. These were the first people to smelt iron on a large scale. The Armenian tablets contain letters between the Hittite emperor, how do you say that?
Subiliolioma. Subiliolioma.
And a Memothop. Huh?
Nailed it.
Yeah. The fourth of Egypt, Ramses II, records how he engaged the Hittites to the Battle of Kadesh, in the earliest recorded battle involving massed battle chariots. So, just interesting. The Hittites are referred to as the sons of Heth in Hebrew, which is translated to the Hittites.
Right. So this would be
From
modern
Genesis
day
23.
Bagizkoi in Turkey.
Huh. There you go. That narrows it right down for me.
That's right. So that would be similar to, I believe, the Galatians were in the area, in the Turkey area.
Uh-huh.
Gobble, gobble.
All right, this one, Jake.
So some people have suggested that following the collapse of the Hittite Empire, the remnant of the Hittite people migrated to the Far East. In cuneiform inscriptions, Hittites are often recorded as Kitay, which might possibly have been modified to Cathay.
Because we did notice when you start breaking down some of these names, there's some different spellings, and part of that is translation and time and how people say things and how people write things, and you're coming back, hundreds and if not thousands of years later, trying to figure out what somebody wrote. So sometimes things get misread, or it's hard to know, and people spell things differently too.
Right.
So then we get to the Hivites, and it means villagers, and this is the sixth generation of descendants from Canaan.
Yeah. So this is a very, you would think that name would be kind of, you could handshake this guy.
Yeah.
You could shake your hands with a villager. I mean, that's
no problem.
That's nice. I mean, we just met the terrors and now we're villagers. I'd rather bump into a villager than a terror.
That's right. The village people here. So
exactly.
The original village people right here.
Yeah.
So, beautiful man. So more about them. So I was just trying to put as much information here as I could, and from different sources, and we weren't going to spend forever on it.
Yeah. So this is saying one of the Aboriginal tribes of Palestine, which is an interesting way to
yeah, we don't
cite
usually
that.
think about that, do we? But it makes sense that these would be the original Aboriginal people of that area.
Yeah.
You might call them First Nation people.
You might.
Maybe. So
I think that's the Aboriginal title, right?
yeah.
It's,
mm-hmm.
I mean, usually you're thinking Australia, but no.
Yes.
It's not the case.
That's right. And then more about them. Anything stand out here, Jake?
I
Tent dweller.
feel like most people were tent dwellers back then.
Yeah.
But in terms of that being the name that kind of you're based on is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then the Perizzites.
Belonging to a village. So like a villager.
So definitely seem connected to the other one. And it's also interesting how they all end in "ite." So anytime you see "ite," and once again, belonging to a village.
Yeah.
So
They're saying southern part of Canaan.
mm-hmm. And that's source 10. And a little bit more about the history, Jake, while you read this.
Yes. Biblical mentions of Perizzites extend from the time of Abraham to the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. According to Michael Lefebvre, Ezra's reference to the Perizzites does not imply that a group still known as Perizzites existed in the land of Ezra's time. It is instead to be understood as a literary reference by Ezra to passages such as Exodus 34:11-16, Exodus 33:2, and Deuteronomy 7:1-5, which prohibited intermarriage with a variety of non-Israelite peoples, including Perizzites, among others. The time during which Perizzites were most in conflict with the Israelites seems to be the time of Joshua into the early period of the Judges. According to the book of Joshua, the Perizzites were all in the hill country of Judah and Ephraim. According to 1 Kings 9:21, they were servants to Solomon. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
According to Hittitologist, so when you're thinking about going to college and studying abroad, think about becoming a Hittitologist.
Yes, that's a good one.
Trevor R. Bryce, the Perizzites cannot be linked to any people or lands known from extra-biblical sources, but there are speculative links to the Hivites and the Jebusites, who may have originated from a region called K in Assyrian sources, or Kikoa in biblical sources.
Okay.
There you have it.
And then the Amorites, you probably heard of these guys before. And what does it say they mean? It doesn't say there.
It means Amorite.
Yep. This one says
Sayer.
a sayer, yeah.
Ooh.
So whatever a sayer is does not seem good, or from Yah. It makes me think of fortune telling, or, I don't know what the saying would be.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Down here, though, it says in the Strong's definition, prominence, thus a mountaineer, an Amorite, one of the Canaanite tribes, Amorite. So maybe a mountaineer.
It also says very dubious.
Ooh, that's dubious. So you couldn't trust these guys. Oh, yes, here. Mountain dwellers. So this is the... Yes, it's all coming back to me now. The Amorites are what people presume the legend of trolls comes from. It's the Amorites,
yeah.
the mountain dwellers.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've seen Lord of the Rings, obviously the trolls live in the mountains, in the caves under the mountains. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah, that's a good tie-in. If you've seen or read The Hobbit, any of the Tolkien books, which, a lot of us did back in the day, you're familiar with that, what did they call it? Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Middle Earth and all these tribes and these people. And after I started seeing this, I was like, I think he's talking about this. I think he was...
I think 100%.
He's talking about these weird, crazy people that are clearly have a vendetta against Yah and against his people, and did some really freaky stuff. And that's kind of what you see there. So that's kind of his version of what this ancient Earth might have looked like. So it's kind of interesting, for all his flaws and right or wrong, with Tolkien, is an interesting take for sure.
Yeah, and I think the premise behind that story was that him and who's the other famous
Bilbo?
guy? No, the other famous
Gandalf?
No, the writer.
Oh,
from that time period.
Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis, that's it. Thank you. Anyway, so those two, if you don't know this, then... Time you knew, yeah. I'm probably telling one person, maybe. So, they had a kind of deal where they would... one thought they could write the better... Christian allegory without it being, obvious, since it's an allegory, right? So those two stories, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and the Lord of the Rings series, are a competition of Christian allegory between the two, and so it's pretty interesting. I think it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we'll move on. Would you read Amos 2:9?
I destroyed the Amorites in front of them, although the Amorites were as tall as cedars and as strong as oaks. I destroyed their fruit above the ground and their roots below it.
This is a scripture that I remember Rob Skiba specifically talking about, and it is hard to wrap your mind around. When you read this, you're like, does he really mean they were as tall as cedars? Because I've seen some tall cedar trees, and if so, those were really tall people.
Maybe he meant like baby cedar trees.
maybe he's talking about them juniper trees, them cedar, little Texas-sized cedar trees we might have. But yeah, definitely interesting. I'm open to interpretation on that, but I'm also fine with it being literally 30 feet tall. Now that goes against modern science. That goes against what they say. But is it possible? I'm going to say if the Bible says it, then I'm going to say it's. I'm going to tend to believe it, even though I may not understand it. But that's what it says.
Yep, it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought that image kind of fit. So, yeah, and if you were that tall, you would rule the earth because everybody's probably going to do what you say.
You would think so.
Yeah. And then...
okay. Oh, the Amorites. This is picking on me, of course. The fair-skinned, light-haired, blue-eyed, aquiline, hook-nosed, pointy-bearded Amorites. So this comes from Kamal Yildirim, the Ancient Amorites of Mesopotamia, 2017. So that's how he described the Amorites. Yeah.
Which is interesting when you think about people that are Assyrian and Caucasian, and later on, what are they from? I guess they said that's from the Caucasus Mountains.
Yeah, the Caucasus.
Mm-hmm. But they're often described as fair-skinned.
Yeah, you also have. I think it's pretty well out there that the giants. I know that's a relative term because each of these tribes has gigantism going on. But typically, when you think giants, they get the descriptor of red hair and 6 fingers. So.
Yeah. Hence why the Indians said how. So they were counting fingers. That's what they say. Anyway.
That's what they say.
So, please leave comments if
you're offended.
Anything.
If you're offended, leave comments.
So, you got me coughing.
I'll push that cough button.
Too late for that.
All right, I'll read this one.
Okay.
Amorite, 4th of 11 sons of Canaan, 4th son of Ham, his descendants settled in the land of Canaan, initially adopting a nomadic lifestyle. They soon organized themselves into a very powerful and aggressive nation. The Amorites later conquered Babylonia, and one of the most famous kings of Babylonia, Hammurabi, contains the name Amurru. Akkadians describe the Amurru as a desert people unacquainted with civilized life, grain, houses, cities, or government. Hammurabi is a name that people should know, right?
Yes.
That's the gorilla that they shot, that kid filmed.
Harambe.
That's right. So, anyone, I don't know, anyone 10 years, is that like 10 years ago now?
No,
Harambe?
Maybe longer.
Wow.
Maybe longer, so.
Yeah, Zooks. Yeah, that's old news. Never mind, no one caught that reference.
Yeah. Now, I do have a funny story. When I was in college, I took a class called Western Civilization, and it was a fantastic class. Highly recommend that class if you wanted to take a college class, because we talked about things like this, and we studied Hammurabi, and he had this code, and my brother had taken this class the year behind me, and he's like, "Can I study your notes?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so he studied my notes, and in my notes, I had written down these things that he had in this code, and I had something weird in there, like no beards or something, but I think he did have that in there. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but there was something, and I had written badly, and he couldn't tell what it is, and so everybody in his study group wrote the same answer, on the question. And so after the test was given, the teacher called him up and said, "Hey, I honestly don't think any of you cheated, because none of you have ever, made me think that you would do that." And he's like, "I just got to know, how did you all come up with this answer?" And that's when he found out. And of course, he knew me, and he just thought that was so funny that they couldn't read my handwriting, and they studied my notes and got the question wrong.
So they all wrote down some random word that didn't make any sense because they misread your notes.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
And so Harambe's code. So if you were listening to that and you got that question wrong on a Western civilization test, then I'm sorry. Don't use my notes next time.
Oh man.
So anyway, I guess that's also what happens when you go to a small school.
Yeah, that'll teach him from stealing your.
Yeah, people know you.
Busting your tomato.
All right, so I believe we read all that.
Yeah, we read that one.
We went backwards. So here is, in fact, kind of looks like Hammurabi's code there, but how do you say that? The clay tablets uniform? Cuneiform. So
they had city-states in various locations.
So
founded Babylon.
So if you see at the bottom there, Sumerian texts, Amorites, the principal deity in the Amorite kingdom. So anyway, definitely interesting, and definitely a name you have heard before. And then the Jebusites, and they mean descendants of Jebus. Okay.
Very creative.
Yes, thank you for that. And then this one, I think, says something else. What else does it say, Jake?
Inhabitant of Jebus. I'm calling it Jebus. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, it's referencing 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles.
And this is Brown Driver Briggs.
Zechariah.
So, not quite as flashy as the others. Just truly, that's who he came from. Okay. And then he's the third of 11 sons of Canaan, fourth from the son of Ham. The remainder of the descendants of Canaan are named by their collective name, ending in "ite." So the Jebusites were probably descendants from a son of Canaan, like they're called Jebus, which makes sense. They settled in the mountain regions of Judea. Their chief city was later called Jerusalem in Judges 19:10, which was taken by David, 2 Samuel 5:6-10. Their strong and natural fortification enabled them to withstand the armies of Israel.
You know what's funny? We'll get to it. I don't know if I want to bring this up now. I'll bring it up later, I guess.
Funny but money.
Yeah. Right here.
Talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, so we found this source, and if you go, it's an encyclopedia source, and if you go to, I think Google AI will spit this answer out to you too. So according to the Tanakh, the Jebusite priest king named Melchizedek ruled the area of Jerusalem at the time of Abraham, and Joshua later defeated another Jebusite king named Adonizedek. The Zedek part of these names mean king and lord, respectively, and most biblical scholars believe that it is a reference to a deity named Zedek, who was the main deity worshipped by the Jebusites, making the names "My king is Zedek" and "the Lord is Zedek." Scholars are uncertain, however, whether Melchizedek was himself intended by the redactors of Genesis to be understood as a Jebusite, rather than a member of another group in charge of Jerusalem prior to the Jebusites. Jerusalem is referred to as Salem rather than Jebus, in the passages of Genesis describing Melchizedek. But yeah, that's kind of what I was going to bring up, is that Salem was Jerusalem, the early rendition of Jerusalem. And when they were saying that the Jebusites were living in that region, it's interesting that then they pull out, well, the king there being named Melchizedek. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. So Matt and I discussed this, and we're not sure if it passes the smell test. He may have been the priest and king. Melchizedek may have been the priest and king of a people named the Jebusites, but this seems to be implying that Melchizedek himself was a Jebusite.
Yeah, and I think that'd be hard to prove. I'm not sure about that, but we thought it was interesting. We were going to take it out, but we were like, well, it's out there. We want to see what you think.
Yeah, and kind of our thoughts on it are that it doesn't make sense that he would be a Jebusite because the Jebusites came from the lineage of Ham. And I think the general understanding is that, like, especially if you're going with Enoch and Jasher and Jubilees and those books, they'll label Melchizedek as a Shem descendant, right?
Yeah, more connected to him, yeah.
So that's something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And then we have Sidon or Zidon, and it means hunting. And then later, it's a city on the Mediterranean coast, very close to Tyre.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of, where I was talking about where we end up being is we are going to talk about Tyre in the prophecy of Tyre.
Yeah, this is interesting too. It says in the sense of catching fish. So that's pretty interesting, especially when you look at Tyre, and we've discussed before. The importance of people as fish. When you look at the prophecy of the alligator, is it the alligator being pulled out of the Nile,
or the crocodile
with fish on its scales, something
crocodile.
Crocodile.
No alligators in the Nile.
Yeah, we don't know. We're from Texas. Well, Matt is. They get a lot of alligators, right?
Yeah. Got them gators. Yep. No, very good. Yeah, there is a scripture about that. And then, what else?
Oh, this kind of expounds on it in the sense of catching fish, fishery. Okay, there, expounded.
Yep. And then, first of 11 sons of Canaan, fourth son of Ham, his descendants settled on the Mediterranean coast of Canaan, where his name is still retained in the modern city of Sidon, originally known as the Zidonians. They were later known as the Phoenicians. Josephus wrote that the Sidonius was called by Greeks Sidon.
Isn't that, aren't those blinds? The Phoenician blinds?
Yeah, I think so. I've had them. Those are fancy.
Yeah.
It's a big city.
That's right.
So, definitely, the Phoenician is an interesting topic, though, because some people even put the Hebrews, the Israelites, in the Phoenician category unknowingly, just because they're grouped from the same part of the world. And it's interesting, if you go look at the Phoenician alphabet, how similar it is to the Hebrew alphabet, especially Paleo-Hebrew. So, it's definitely some interesting tie-ins there. And I do think maybe history confuses some of the things the Hebrews did with the Phoenicians just because they were so intertwined and lived in the same area.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then we got the Girgashites.
So that means dwelling on a clayey soil. They like that clay.
Yeah. All right. So
they're saying east of the Sea of Galilee when the Israelites entered the Promised Land.
And kind of the same thing. One of the nations living east of Galilee. Yeah.
So would this be the area of the potter's field then?
Ooh, I don't know. Possibly. That's a good thing to look at. Good thing to study. Yes, I guess it is possible. Well, good observation.
So probably a lot of dead bodies buried there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Judas.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't he go there? Isn't that where he did the...
Yeah.
So, okay, the Girgashites were the fifth of 11 sons of Canaan, fourth son of Ham. They settled east of the Jordan between Galilee and the Dead Sea. Their descendants are probably the Gadarenes of the New Testament. Josephus calls him Gergesus. Similar names are found in Ugaritic, Hittite, and Egyptian records.
Yeah, it's no surprising that they would be be interchangeable in each other's records. They're all connected to the same family.
They're all family, yeah. Mm-hmm. When they would send their quote-unquote Christmas cards all over the place, they'd, "Hey, Gergish, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's me, Parasite." Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're just terrorizing people. What are you doing? Oh, we have clay.
Yes, we're with the villages. All right, so here's more about them. Just more of the same things. This is the apparent inconsistency may be due to their immigrating to North Africa prior to the Israelites entering the land. So, anyway, like I said, we didn't want to get too in the weeds on this. A Sinite, so means thorn or clay.
This is another tie-in to sin being tied in with thorns.
Yeah. And the brown driver Briggs says the same thing pretty much here. It also mentions shore of the sea. And then this was a different one, which I thought was interesting. Archy, a lengthy. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, I'm not sure. It's been too long since I put this together. I'm not sure.
Ooh, gnawing.
Mm-hmm. And then more about the Sinites, northern Lebanon, Sanaa, Sanu, Sani, Sin.
So medieval biblical exegete Sadia Gaon identify the Sinites with the indigenous peoples of Tripoli in Lebanon. So they're 8 of 11 sons of Canaan, 4th son of Ham. The name of these people can be identified with the northern Phoenician city-state of Siyanu. Their name is still found in the modern towns of Nair as Sin and Sin Adarb. That's fun to say.
Mm-hmm.
Which are near Arka. Siyani and the nearby city of Ushnatu formed a vassal state controlled by the Ugarite until they came under the control of the Hittite king of Kokamish around 1300 BC. They were one of the coalition of 12 nations, including Israel, who fought against the Assyrians at the Battle of Karkar in 853 BC. In 738 BC, they came under the control of Assyria when conquered by Tiglath-Pileser III. They appear in records from the Phoenicians and Assyrians and are mentioned by the historians Strabo and Hieronymus.
All right.
We all know Strabo.
So yeah, go way back. And Arvadites, which means I shall break loose. Yeah, he looks like he could break loose.
He's breaking loose from something.
I shall break loose. I think that's what he's saying right there. I break loose.
I think that's from Bloodsport when... Oh, what the heck's the guy's name? I'm not going to be able to think of it now. You know the guy. Bolo. When Bolo says, I must break you. There you go.
I must break you.
And then I have Archy. You know what? That's where the Archy's supposed to be. So I had that one on the wrong side.
Gotcha.
This makes sense because I kept going, how does that make sense? But that makes sense. There.
There.
It says
gnawing, and lengthy.
Yeah. So now.
So this is
Syria.
Arvadites,
Yep.
right? And this is, Syria.
And Zemarite, which means double woolens. So double woolies. I don't know what that means. Double underwear.
They got real cold.
Guess so. I'm not sure what that means. So, interesting. So what else does it say here? This is Brown Driver Briggs in the Septuagint.
Saying kind of the same deal there.
Mm-hmm.
South toward, let's see, modern Sumra, north of Tripoli and south of Ruad. So there you have it.
I guess I just
This
threw
was
that.
your favorite
I
slide.
threw that one everywhere. So Zamorites thought to have been inhabited of Sumar, a city on the coast, present-day Syria.
Homs.
Yeah.
If anyone's knows where Homs is, then you're right near there.
That's right. Maybe you live near it. Hamite. So clearly connected to Ham. One of the families descended from Canaan. And doesn't tell us what it means.
No.
No,
It probably means lengthy. Oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Western Syria, northern Lebanon.
All right, so when it comes to this is going to be kind of the summary. And wow, look at that. We're going to wrap up at about an hour.
All right.
Genesis 10:6, we see from the names of God, we see the descendants of Ham. His descendants were Cush, Egypt, Put, and Canaan. And then also you see Canaan's descendants as being the Sidonians, the Hittites, the children of Heth, Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zamorites, Hamathites.
Yeah, and clearly some of these got more play than others.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you read this one? And I may have to move us if I can. I don't know if I can, Jake.
Okay. Nations descended from Japheth. Genesis 10, 2 through 5, and 1 Chronicles 1, 5 through 7. The family of Japheth is listed down to the third generation. There are 7 sons of Japheth, and 2 of these, Gomer and Javan, have their descendants listed. Gomer goes to the Ashkenaz and Riphath and Togarmah. Then you have Magog, Madai, Javan, which is goes to Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. And then you have Tubal and Meshach and Tiras. And then Japheth is second of the 3 sons of Noah. So, and that's from
Genesis 2.
10:2, right?
Yeah, 10:2. And I believe that brings us to the end.
Okay.
So I'm going to go here, but I'm pretty sure it's the last slide. Oh, did I go backwards?
It would appear so. Okay, there you go.
So we made it to the end. Yay!
Hey,
High
all
five!
right.
Made it to the end of Seed War at about an hour here.
All right.
So this is part 1 of many more to come. And so we'll go back to, so we will continue this discussion on another day. So we'll put this in a series, and I will also embed the links, and I will have a PDF available at some point of the same thing.
Right.
So.
And you're welcome to share it and use it and spread it about as you care to. We're not hoarders of knowledge or anything like that. This is out there for the people to know.
Yeah, and we certainly don't claim to have a corner on the truth and have everything figured out. In fact, if anyone does, you should be very leery of them. And we just ask you to check our work, be Bereans, and above all, study Scripture. Don't take our word for it. Go look it up for yourself, and hopefully this can just be a starting point for your own study, because I know I have definitely looked at other people's work and studied it and kind of made it my own. And so that's the best way to study, is kind of poke around on an idea and get interested and then go pursue it on your own.
Yeah, I tend to think the way that it basically works is, as I'm reading through a new teaching, a new something, basically I think Yah's gonna make stick in my brain the things I need to go look at more and things I'm not quite sure about, and that'll kind of lead me someplace. And hopefully, I'm doing that with integrity, so I'll be finding truth, and it'll stick, and it'll be easier to remember because you'll make it your own, like Matt said. A lot of, like, early on, come to Torah stuff, you can listen to a lot of teachings, but until you actually go study it out for yourself, the knowledge is still that person's. It's not your own.
Yeah.
So once you make it your own, no one can really take it from you at that point.
Yep.
So.
Well, we'd appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. If you are interested in Torah portions, we have that on our website.
Right.
You can follow that along if you do a group Torah portion study or even one on your own. We've made that all available to you. And please do share this with other people. We've done interviews. We've done all kinds of things. We'll continue to do those things as long as the Lord is willing for us to do it. And so we do appreciate if you pray for Sabbath Lounge. We appreciate that. And if you're interested in contacting us, you can always send me an email, and Jen and I both will get it at sabbathlounge@gmail.com. So, right. And we'd be happy to answer questions, or just if you want to say hey, or if you want us to read something on the air, submit it like that, and we can.
Yep. Shout outs for birthdays, that kind of thing.
Yeah. All the time. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you being here. This is Matt
and Jake
signing out.